Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is. And I think that's a shame, Bob.
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
I'm now at a juncture where I can say no. I don't want to make another movie.
Disney never imagined the day its crown jewel heroes would look the mouse straight in the eye and walk away. But the revolt began the moment Jeremy Renner opened his mouth. Picture it. The man who'd hauled himself bone by shattered bone out of an ICU bed, after a 14,000-pound snowplow chewed through his legs, sits across from a Disney rep who slides a new Hawkeye contract across the table, half the pay he earned before the accident. They didn't even pretend to hide the insult.
I'm gonna go fly a kite. I mean, just at the insult offer. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over?
Renner ran a thumb over the figure, felt the old fractures ache and laughed. Go fly a kite, he told them, and every fatigued stunt double, every overworked VFX artist heard the echo. Because that was the moment the Avengers realized how small Disney thought they were. Half the Jeremy, half the worth, never mind the metal rods still holding him together. And when Renner walked, others finally stopped whispering and started packing. Scarlett Johansson had already shown them the map. She dragged Disney into court after they dumped Black Widow onto streaming and vaporized her back-end bonus, then watched the studio smear her as greedy in the middle of a pandemic. She didn't blink. She settled for 8-figure hush money and, more important, proved the castle's walls could crack. The cracks widened in the corridors most fans never see. The dim rooms where VFX crews gulp energy drinks while shot lists multiply overnight. One coordinator leaked that Marvel projects felt like drowning with a stopwatch on your neck. Whole teams quit mid-render. Others formed a first-ever union drive. Their war cry? Marvel is the worst client in the industry. By the time CEO Bob Iger called striking writers and actors unrealistic, the word had lost its sting. Unrealistic compared to what his $400,000 a week paycheck. Across town, James Gunn watched, remembered the day Disney fired him over decade-old jokes, rehired him out of desperation, then expected gratitude. Instead of kissing the ring, he took Warner Brothers' offer to rebuild DC from scratch. The deal: creative freedom, real budgets, zero mouse-eared micromanagers. He called a few friends, Chris Pratt, Palm Clementieff, Karen Gillan, and quietly asked, what if the respect you've been begging for is waiting over here? Suddenly, Hollywood's best-kept secret wasn't secret at all. Warner Brothers had carved out a $900 million war chest to relaunch the Justice League and stock it with disillusioned Marvel heavy hitters. No spreadsheets first, no theme park tie-ins first. MCU veterans listened, glanced back at Disney's collapsing Phase 5 schedule and felt something they hadn't felt in years. Possibility. Meanwhile, Disney's PR machine churned out optimism. They promised algorithm-guided multiverse cameos, dead heroes resurrected for a quick joke, VFX houses sweating blood to de-age 50-year-old footage, actors contractually gagged from complaining. Yet fans felt the hollowness. Box office drops turned into Reddit post-mortem. TikTok editors stitched Renner's half the Jeremy rant beside Iger's strike comments and asked, why are we still giving them our money? Views soared, and that's when the migration became a stampede. Scarlett declined all Marvel event invite. Dave Bautista vowed no more green body paint if the studio doesn't care about Drax's humanity. Palm confirmed she'd already shot scenes for an unannounced DC film, calling the set weirdly calm, like everyone's allowed to breathe. Insiders whispered that a former core Avenger name locked behind NDAs had signed a pay-or-play clause for a DC role big enough to anchor 3 films. Disney responded by greenlighting another batch of remakes and floating early AI trailers nobody asked for. The stock bumped, then slipped. The suits doubled the marketing budget for Secret Invasion. Audiences shrugged. It wasn't fatigue. It was betrayal exhaustion. Once you know your heroes are treated like disposable brand assets, the magic leaks out of every Renner, now filming gritty television instead of dodging CGI aliens, sums it up best. I love Hawkeye, but I love walking more. If a studio can't value that, I'm out. If that line makes your pulse quicken, wait till you hear how Johansson leveraged her settlement into a clause that protects every future actor from stealth streaming dumps, and why she's rumored to cameo in DC's 2027 event film as a sly middle finger to the mouth. Smash that subscribe, keep notifications on, and buckle up, the exodus has only begun. In private Zoom rooms, the agents started trading whispered spreadsheets. Who still owed Marvel a picture? Who had quiet escape clauses? Who was simply done? One veteran dealmaker described the vibe as the lifeboats dropping on the starboard side while the orchestra's still playing the Avengers theme. Kevin Feige did the rounds, promising course corrections, but every promise sounded like more of the same. Multiverse band-aids, nostalgia injections, a hope that audiences wouldn't notice the seams showing through the spandex, They noted what really detonated morale was the payout chart that leaked from Disney's legal department. It lined up executive bonuses beside 2023's layoff tally. 7,000 jobs cut while Bob Iger's total compensation crept toward 40 million. The chart hit Slack channels like a pipe bomb. A junior compositor who'd spent 14 consecutive weekends rebuilding final shot assets for Quantumania wrote one sentence beneath it. "We're the CGI." The message spread faster than any official memo ever could. James Gunn, meanwhile, invited a handful of Marvel refugees to an early table read for Superman Legacy. There were no agents, no brand consultants, just battered creatives around a wooden table littered with scribbled note cards. Someone asked about deadline. Gunn laughed. "Let's set the schedule around the story, not the other way round." A silence followed, part shock, part relief, before they dove into character arcs like first-year film students who'd forgotten the word merchandising. That same week, Disney brass tried to poach the moment back by announcing an Avengers Forever crossover event, a 3-film spectacle they said would reunite every hero who'd ever drawn breath in the MCU. The press release promised faces from every timeline, every dimension. What it didn't mention was that half the actors hadn't signed on, and some never would. Internally, the plan relied on digital doubles and AI voice synth to resurrect anyone who refused. When a VFX supervisor leaked concept art of a synthetic Tony Stark, fandom erupted. Hashtags like "Jingun, Let Heroes Rest" trended for days. Robert Downey Jr. never commented publicly, but insiders say he placed a short call to Feige. "Please don't." The studio pivoted, claiming the images were exploratory. Yet the damage was done. Once the audience suspects their nostalgia might be rendered by algorithm, the spell snaps. Jeremy Renner watched from his rehab gym. Between sets on the anti-gravity treadmill he ran numbers out loud. 7 surgeries, 19 screws. He told Men's Health he'd found more joy filming a low-budget drama about opioid towns than he'd ever felt shooting green screen ensembles. "Because nobody in that room thought I was a line item," he said. "They thought I was a person who almost died and still showed up to work." Scarlett Johansson turned up at a UCLA law symposium and, without naming Disney, dissected the power imbalance of streamers rewriting contracts mid-shoot. "They make billions on subscriber pops," she said, "then cry poverty when residuals are due." The audience, law students not fanboys, gave her a standing ovation. In the Q&A, a student asked if she'd wear the widow suit again. She smiled. "Only if my daughter is starring and needs the cameo. Otherwise that chapter is closed." Rumblings grew louder that Johansson had quietly inked a producing pact with Warner to shepherd a Vertigo imprint thriller, one that would position her both behind and in front of the camera with creative veto power baked in. Compare that to Disney's infamous clause reserving final creative authority for itself, even over star producer projects. It was the same clause Emma Stone had nearly sued over before Disney hurried extra zeros onto her Cruella check. Meanwhile, the Writers Guild pushed for a new minimum staffing rule and AI protections. Disney's negotiators balked. Leaked emails showed executives debating whether to let certain shows die on the vine to starve the strike. Those emails made it into Variety, then into every group chat in Hollywood. One showrunner forwarded the thread to James Gunn with the caption, "Still hiring?" Within a month she was outlining a DC limited series. Warner's accountants had initially balked at Gunn's 900, but then the numbers came back on audience sentiment. Trust in Disney's superhero pipeline had fallen below 50% for the first time in 15 years. DC's was trending up for the first time ever. Suddenly the money looked safe. Insiders say the board greenlit 2 contingency funds, one for overruns, one for poaching talent feeling creatively disenfranchised elsewhere. Translation: a welcome mat for every Avenger ready to defect. Chris Pratt kept his poker face, but at GalaxyCon a fan shouted "Booster Gold," and he grinned just a beat too long before security whisked him away. Dave Bautista reposted a fan edit of himself as Bane with a winking emoji. Palm Clementieff told a French podcast she'd spent 3 weeks in Atlanta playing with creatures you haven't met yet. Nobody had to decode that. Disney's response? A new internal slogan leaked from an executive summit: "Scale wins." As if size alone could plug a sinking hull. But scale can't buy back trust once stars start telling the truth. And now the truth was everywhere, on podcasts, on Puck newsletters, in TikTok Stitch rants where VFX artists detailed 100-hour crunch weeks while Bob Iger talked shareholder value. The castle's foundation hadn't just cracked, it was being carried away brick by the very heroes who once guarded its gates. The real panic inside Burbank started when the licensing partners called. Target, Hasbro, Lego brands that live and die on forecasting wanted updated timelines for Avengers branded inventory. Beyond, Marvel's consumer products division stalled, asked for additional clarity from theatrical. Translation: we no longer know who's actually showing up in these movies. A single missing face on a toy aisle end cap can cost millions, so the partners did the unthinkable. They put contingency clauses in new contracts that void minimum order guarantees if a principal actor publicly exits the franchise. Disney's legal team nearly choked. No studio had ever seen terms that aggressive from its merch pipeline. But what leverage did they really have? None, because Warner had already swooped in with a pitch deck promising a coordinated DC toy rollout tied to Gunn's first wave. They sweetened the pot profit sharing for early adopters, something Disney hadn't offered in 20 years. Inside Marvel, the creative retreat became a creative triage. Writers were told to prep 2 versions of every outline, one with legacy heroes, one without. Directors were instructed to leave face motif wiggle room. Corporate jargon for shoot it so we can deep fake whoever quits. One assistant editor leaked a still frame of a mocap stuntman wearing interchangeable marker dots labeled Spidey Strange Unknown. The image flew across Reddit like wildfire. The algorithmic future fans had feared made literal. And then came the slogan that sank morale to the ocean floor. Actors age, IP doesn't. Some bright spark scrawled it on a whiteboard during a finance presentation. The slide deck reached a storyboard artist who forwarded it to a journalist friend at the ankle. Within hours the phrase was a meme. Mickey clutching Infinity Stones, Thanos style above the caption actors age. IP doesn't. By sunset it was sprayed in red on the parking garage wall outside Marvel's offices. Security cameras caught 2 VFX temps laughing as they walked away. Compare that to the tone on the DC lot. It wasn't kumbaya Hollywood seldom is, but there was actual eye contact in the hallways. When someone pitched a rewrite, Gunn asked why the change mattered to the character, not how it would track 4 sequels later. There were still budgets, still spreadsheets, but nobody uttered the phrase replaceable. A junior concept artist tweeted, "First studio note I got here. Cool design, what's the metaphor? Never heard that in 5 years at Marvel." The tweet racked up 500,000 likes before she deleted it, probably after a polite call reminding her of NDAs. Didn't matter, the screenshot lived on. Marvel's board held an emergency offsite at a Napa vineyard to project confidence. Executives sampled $400 Cabernet while analysts projected 6 future phases of multiversal expansion. Someone asked about the strike, the AI backlash, the talent drain. The response, according to a leaked voice note, audiences adjust. Cheap, VFX will get better. Nostalgia never dies. A pause, then clinking glasses. Meanwhile, back in LA, stunt performers were sharing group chat videos of unfinished CG composites where their bodies warped like rubber because render farms were overloaded. One wrote, "Nostalgia never dies but my lower back might." A turning point hit when Variety published its annual power rank list, and, for the first time since 2014, a Marvel actor didn't crack the top 10. In their place, a trio of stars attached to Gunn's Superman legacy talent who hadn't even shot a frame yet. Hollywood pay-attention types called it the future arriving early. Disney PR blasted off embargoed press releases touting new era Avengers, but the trades smelled blood. They quoted anonymous insiders saying the lineup looked like Comic-Con karaoke familiar lyrics. No original singer. And still the exodus grew. An Oscar-winning screenwriter quietly exited a Disney Plus series after exec notes asked him to insert 3 MCU jokes per page. He signed with DC the next week. A rising cinematographer opted out of Thunderbolts after Marvel demanded stagecraft volume stages for every scene day or night. Cheaper to grade, they said. She's now lensing the brave and the bold on 70mm. Even the fans who once wore Infinity Gauntlet popcorn buckets began to drift. TikTok stitches compared the raw sincerity of Guardians Vol. O. Gunn's swan song to the quip factory of recent Marvel fare. One clip went viral compiling every time a Disney hero makes a joke immediately after near death. Caption: "Trauma isn't punchline fuel." Underneath, commenters wrote, "Remember when Tony cried? That felt real. Now it's all." It was a vibe shift you could chart on Google Trends. Searches for MCU fatigue skyrocketed the exact week Warner dropped its Gods and Monsters slate. Still, Disney doubled down, announcing AI-assisted performance capture libraries that would let them resurrect retired actors in perpetuity with family approval, of course. The backlash was nuclear. An open letter signed by 50 veteran performers demanded legal protection. Jeremy Renner reposted it with a single arrow emoji. Scarlett Johansson liked the post. "You can't buy that kind of collective side-eye." Warner seized the moment. They launched an initiative giving every lead actor in the DCU a back-end slice tied to physical media, not just streaming. Old school, maybe, but to talent wary of disappearing residuals, it felt like respect on paper. They also added a clause: if any film hits its diversity and production targets, a bonus fund flows to crew profit sharing. Disney's own diversity council called the move industry redefining. Marvel sent an internal memo reminding staff not to comment publicly. Across Hollywood the message resonated. Warner might not be perfect, but at least it's listening. And the Avengers, those still contract-tethered, began eyeing exit ramp. Chris Hemsworth's reps let slip he'd only return for a Thor finale if it shot in Australia with his preferred stunt team and a script rewrite approval. Tom Holland, technically a Sony asset, started following James Gunn on Instagram and liking set build photos from Creature Commando. A gossip account posted, "Spidey swinging to Gotham? Millions believed it for 12 wild hours." Disney tried to plug holes with announcements. Frozen 4, a Moana live-action sequels to sequels of live-action remakes. Stock rose for a quarter. Then analysts finally admitted franchise fatigue was real. One wrote, "You can't treat art like IP forever." Eventually the IP files for Emancipation. It read like poetry in a Bloomberg terminal. And somewhere in a Warner Lot conference room a fresh concept painting unfurled. A new Justice League lineup towering over battered tabloids labeled Phase Who. At the bottom a signature JG. Next to it penciled in tentative blue were codenames that once belonged to Avengers. Nobody had to say a word. The revolution was penciled in. Then came the night Disney thought no one would notice. A quiet SEC filing 3 a.m. Eastern, authorizing a strategic amortization schedule for legacy performer likeness assets. Translation: they were planning to book digital scans of former Avengers as intellectual property, depreciated over 10 years, like forklifts. Someone in finance hit ND, someone in legal yawned, and somewhere in Culver City a junior analyst took a screenshot before the document vanished behind a paywall. By sunrise, Humans Not Assets was trending in 12 countries. Robert Downey Jr. didn't tweet. He posted a single photo on Threads, an old BTS shot of the Iron Man MK1 suit caked in real dirt, captioned "Built by hand, not code." Within hours the screenshot of the SEC note sat side by side with Downey's post on every entertainment feed. Over at Warner, executives passed phones around a conference table in stunned silence. Disney had just framed the battle for them. It wasn't Marvel versus DC anymore. It was algorithm versus artisan, spreadsheet versus soul. The unions pounced. As Ata and the newly formed VFX Guild announced a joint emergency summit titled Flesh and Blood Futures. Hollywood veterans who'd never agreed on anything, agents, gaffers, even rival studio chiefs, RSVP'd in the affirmative because nobody wanted to be the next line item depreciated to zero. Reporters asked Kevin Feige for comment at a charity gala. He smiled thinly and said, "We value every contributor." A boom mic caught an extra whispering, "Yeah, at 12 cents on the dollar." Meanwhile, James Gunn greenlit an unscheduled town hall livestream. Tin coffee mugs, dogs barking in the back, concept art taped to drywall, no PR polish. He looked straight into the webcam and said, "DC isn't a brand, it's a bunch of people who love stories. If the day ever comes we have to choose between the ledger and the story, we choose the story." No script, no teleprompter. Millions watched. Studio share price ticked up 6% in after hours. The ripple reached Wall Street comics too. Speculators who'd flipped every Marvel key issue for quick profit started grading Action Comics back issues instead. LA billboard brokers reported a spike in requests for Wonder Woman and Batman placements. Disney doubled ad buys for upcoming Marvel releases, but digital CTRs slid further. Audiences weren't clicking. They were reading the room. Inside Disney, one last pitch session tried to capture lightning. The idea: Avengers Legacy AI de-aged versions of the original six travel the multiverse to recruit brand-compatible variants. Someone asked what happens when the public notices the dead-eye stares. Silence. A junior exec suggested calling Jeremy Renner's reps again. A senior exec muttered, he'd rather chew glass, and the meeting ended early. Across town, Renner rapped an indie neo-western financed by a boutique streamer. Budget $15 million. Crew profit share 20%. He limped to the rap party, raised a ginger ale and told the director, "I haven't felt this alive since 20." Reporters asked if he'd ever return to Hawkeye. He grinned, "Never say never, just say value me as a whole person." Scarlett Johansson quietly optioned the life rights of a forgotten Golden Age cartoonist blackballed by studios in the 1950s. She'll produce, maybe direct. When a journalist wondered if the project would land at Disney Plus, her publicist answered, "There are other homes." Then the leak everybody expected finally burst. First draft pages of Justice League New Dawn hit the web. No plot spoilers, just a cast list header. Clark Kent, TBA. Bruce Wayne, TBA. Diana Prince, TBA. Barry Allen, confidential. Arthur Curry, confidential. Redacted, former Avenger. The internet lost its mind. Betting markets froze lines. Disney lawyers drafted cease and desist letters only to discover the document was already archived in 10,000 Telegram channels. By the time Comic-Con rolled around, the convention hall buzzed with one question: who jumped? Warner's panel lights dimmed, a silhouette appeared and the room erupted before the reveal because they recognized the walk. No multi-million-dollar marketing plan could buy that roar. On Twitter, one trending tag eclipsed every Marvel announcement: Avengers assemble. Elsewhere, Disney's quarterly earnings call landed 2 days later. An analyst asked about talent retention risk. Bob Iger paused, adjusted his glasses and offered a rehearsed smile. Our intellectual property is timeless, he said. Stocks dipped 3% in the next 5 minutes. And that's how the battle lines hardened. Not along franchise borders, but along basic human respect. Once the magic castle shows its gears, you stop believing in fairy dust. Actors, artists and even fans realized they don't have to kiss the ring. They can build a new kingdom down the street where the drawbridge is open and the storytellers hold the keys. If you felt the spell breaking, you're not alone. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next curtain pull. Smash that like to boost the signal and drop a comment. Do you follow the brand or the people who make it worth watching? The choice for the first time in a long time is ours.